Good evening for the Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, April 30th. Our agenda tonight is minutes, the discussion of the town meeting warrant, member update, public input, and scheduling our next meeting. This should be a fairly quick meeting, hopefully. And with that, let's begin. We have minutes for April 8th.
Yep.
Everybody,
I was okay with them.
motion?
Make a motion, we accept the April 8th minutes as presented.
A second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Town meeting warrant. Town meeting is Tuesday, May 7th. Anybody who hasn't caught that yet. Tuesday, May 7th. First, I guess we should talk about some changes. I just checked with Ryan to make sure that there was nothing else that changed. And
I can roll over there.
this, first of all, Article,
Alvin, can you pass one more?
One more down?
Please.
Article 8 is the purchase of the Webster property.
We have a price?
The Littleton Conservation Trust had paid for a second appraisal of the property.
Uh-huh.
That appraisal came back at $730,000. The Websters have agreed to that purchase price, so the article will go forward at town meeting as a purchase through CPC. CPC is meeting tomorrow night to vote the purchase, and that'll be that.
They are going to be asking for $760 to cover
Closing
survey
costs,
and
yeah.
closing costs, but yeah.
So,
Well, that's different than 1.4, isn't it?
It is.
so
We had said it at the November meeting that if we could purchase it with CPC funds, we'd be fine with the purchase. So
No.
it's going to move forward.
so what is the dollar value on it? Is it the 730? Or is it,
Will be $730 plus whatever closing costs there are.
Yeah, purchasing the land for $730, and then they're asking for $30,000 more from CPC just to cover the closing costs and the surveying that needs to be done.
okay, so it's more like 7...
It'll be $760 is what they're asking CPC for, but
Okay, but the Websters get
$730 will be the
730.
purchase price, yep.
Okay, and the closing costs are the proper use for CPC funds?
I guess that's up to CPC to figure out.
They haven't discussed it yet, it'll be tomorrow, but
Okay.
that was how the request came in.
Okay. So we really can't vote until we know what the
Right, I
what the number is.
wouldn't vote
But-
until prior to town meeting. That's when the selectmen are going to get together and vote also. So.
All righty.
Any discussion on Article 8? Anybody wants to do?
No, the only thing, I talked to you, I think I sent you a note, I forget whether I copied you or not, but my concern is that depending on how CPC chooses to pay for it, whether they'll draw down that bucket more than they should, or, because there's another $60,000 a year in a debt service
Mhm.
that's already on the books. So, just as long as they're comfortable, if they pay for it in cash, they're gonna have somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, $500,000 left maybe.
So Ryan and Robin and Kim got together on Monday.
Right.
And gave Carolyn 3 options for the CPC to look at. First option was to pay for the property in full. This would leave a balance, so they currently have $1.2 million after this town meeting prior to this purchase
Right.
in their open space bucket. If they pay for the thing in full, they'd still have $504,000. Additions to the fund in For the open space bucket in '22 was 106,000, in '23 was 231, '24 is 230. So they're throwing in $200,000 into that open space bucket
A
each
year, okay.
So
Okay.
they should be fine.
All right,
So that's option one. Option two would be to pay cash for half the purchase and bond
half
the
of-
other half
Yep,
over 3 years. So they'd issue a band, short-term note for a year, roll it over, pay it down by a third, another year,
Yep.
roll it over, so on. FY '26 would be the first year that they'll have to make a payment, because we can't make this purchase until after July.
after the first, and then that's in the
For a
following
year,
year,
it's
right?
in the '26 bucket, so that's
Okay.
138,000 in '26, 132,000 in '27, 126,000 in '28, and 36,000 at the end for interest to pay it off in '29. And then option three would be to bond the entire purchase. So they would do the whole 730 over a 3-year period. We could stretch that out to 5 years if necessary. It would be 279, 267, 255 for a total of 803.
So that'd be close to 100,000 in interest.
Yes, 73,000 total.
Okay.
In talking with Carolyn leading up to this, she was talking about a combination,
Mhm.
cash and
Yep, no.
debt. So it's more than likely, based on prior conversations, they go for option two.
Okay,
But it's totally their call how they want to do it.
right.
And just Robin and Ryan laid everything out for them, so they're well aware of the numbers.
But looking at these numbers, even if they did the entire amount, they'd still have $500,000 that if something else came up next year or the year after, they might have to borrow for all of it, but they aren't hamstringing themselves is
Yeah.
what I was concerned
Perfect.
about, and that seems to be okay.
And I think doing half of it, bonding half of it,
Right.
or banning half of it
Mhm.
for only
Makes a lot-
$36,000.
makes a lot of sense with these
interest
numbers,
cost,
yep.
I would,
Absolutely, yep, okay.
just so they have money left over.
Yep, no, thanks for the
Does this
clarification.
need
Okay, so
to-
we should expect a 760-ish thousand number at town meeting, probably.
Unless they can whittle down what those closing costs
Closing
really
costs,
are.
right.
That's just throwing a number at a
Okay.
dartboard, I think, at this point. Yeah.
Does this need, I'm guessing this will be updated, but like the first sentence, it says to raise an appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow a sum of money, including authorization to borrow under the CPA.
Yeah, but they're gonna come up with a new motion.
Oh, it's gonna be a whole new thing, just
Whole
to
new
say it's gonna be the
So that's
community
the article.
preservation, yeah.
What's written there is the
Yeah.
article, but the motion is
Okay.
gonna be based on that, so it's
And Carolyn's working with
transfer
Ryan.
from unavailable funds or borrow is what they're gonna be.
Yeah,
So
but it's
what-
coming, but it's CPC's gonna pay for it, it's not,
Yes.
yeah.
And it was only worded that way to be a broad umbrella, to let everyone in town know any of these things could potentially happen.
True.
But in fact, when people arrive, they'll have the motion, which will be either
Specific to
printed
CPC.
or really
It's
clearly
on one of
laid
those
out.
It'll be on one of those
And
pink
out.
sheets, the handout
Okay,
sheets.
yeah, yeah, great, okay.
Okay, good, all right. Love when the plan comes together.
Ryan just confirmed there are no transfers to be done. I think that was article, whatever.
Good old article, whatever.
Article whatever.
So it'll just get pulled, or,
That'll probably be pulled, yes.
Oh, Article 3, you mean?
Oh, look at this. Uh-oh. We got someone on top of things here. Article 3, Doreen,
Is it
let us
3?
know. Is that the one we're talking about? The whatever
Yes,
article?
That's the whatever.
That's the whatever article.
Good job.
Gonna change the article numbers then.
Article 3 would probably be pulled, yes.
So there'll be no 3.
Shouldn't be.
But then it's not being renumbered because Brian's head would explode if Article 4 became Article 3. All right, we've got to commit to leaving that as our budget number.
And
Okay.
finally, there was a placeholder article, if I can find it, Article 29, to fund collective bargaining agreements. There was a possibility that 3 of the 4 unions may agree by town meeting,
Okay.
so there could be something on Article
To plug
29.
in on 29, okay.
But nothing's confirmed, Selectmen haven't voted any through contracts or anything yet.
So this is a maybe article.
It's a maybe, but it's a good
Depends
chance
on-
that it's a maybe.
Depends on factors, okay.
What does that do to the whole budget, though?
There was money set aside for that,
Right, assuming.
for all 4 units,
Okay.
plus towns. And town halls increases already got factored in to the operating budget. So we pulled it out of that amount that we had set aside.
So we'll have to vote on, if they settle, we'll have to vote on Article 29
Correct.
and Article 8
Correct.
before, on the 7th, before town meeting.
Yes.
Is there anything else that we have hanging out there? I
I
think we
believe
cleared
that's
everything.
everything that
Okay,
we have.
so it's just those 2 articles that we'll have to vote, okay?
And otherwise, everything as printed is moving forward as printed, with the exception of the word Monday on page 1.
Oh, we'll be all done by the time you show up.
Otherwise, it's
I
as
don't know of
printed,
any
right?
other articles that,
We didn't have numbers for, right? It was primarily.
I'll put it this way. So Brian is going to check with council whether Article 10 would need to change because of Article 8. So Article 8 is the purchase,
Okay.
which depending on how much they define it, like specifically saying this is coming out of open space
Right.
bucket for this amount, the spending may have to happen in Article 10,
Okay.
but he's going to check with town council. I'm thinking because there's no interest costs, extra interest costs in FY '25, Article 10 may not need to change
Okay.
in just 11, but you guys, you're meeting
Meeting
tomorrow,
tomorrow, yep.
right? Hopefully Ryan will have that answer for you for tomorrow. Okay.
Yep. I was just looking at this map and I'm thinking to myself, I can't really see a color difference between, you know? You would think by now humans would get it so that those of us could.
Stripes and circles.
Stripes
Yeah.
and dots and circles and wiggles or what have you. Well, it is hard to tell, right, between town conservation and other conservation?
Other conservation is dotted. So Sarah double it.
Oh, I see the
perimeter,
boundaries.
yeah.
That's helpful. That's helpful. Okay, all right. It's not just the shading, it's the actual surround of the block.
Glad I could help you.
Thank you. Thank you, no, I appreciate that. I'm sure we helped some people watching at
But
home.
there's a color one on the website that's really
The
good.
2 people.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's it
So
for the book?
if Tom says we need to put the 700 and whatever in here, that'll be an adder to Article 10. If he says we don't, he feels it's covered in Article 8, we're okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Or if they push the closing cost to Article 10,
Mm.
because it's not part of the purchase. Maybe they'll handle it that way.
Okay.
I just don't know.
But Ryan's working that with Tom, or?
I just talked to him, yes.
Okay, good. Devil's in the details.
Always. Yep.
Okay.
All right. As far as speaking on articles, so I sent around the slides for the beginning of the meeting. We can talk about that in a second, but as far as articles, Brian has volunteered to speak to Article 13. So the last meeting that Fred and I weren't there, Fincom voted to support Article 13. So when Brian was in charge, I passed it up to Brian and said,
We voted on a
Yes, you did.
zoning?
yes, you did. Which,
What were we doing that? Where were you, Steve and Fred, to keep us in control?
Yeah.
Why were we voting on a different regulatory boards?
Yeah, there was a reason, he explained it.
well, it's because we were,
Yeah.
the grant
financial
money that we have.
Right, there was financial, yes,
Yes.
right,
There
exactly.
is,
Oh.
there is
All right, there you
implications,
go, okay.
but it's the planning board's article. I think the town knows the financial implications for now, and what turned them against the article, in my opinion, the last time was kind of the threat that we're gonna lose our money if we don't do this. And I explained to Brian not to threaten, that just say the facts. This is what we got, this is what we could lose.
But Brian's
leave it
going to
at that.
speak on this one, you said.
Brian was gonna speak on that one. Does anybody want to speak on anything else? Fred, would you like to speak on the Webster purchase?
Sure.
That'd be easy this time.
We've already been called disingenuous, so why?
But now you can get up and say how thrilled we are
No, I won't say
that we
that.
are going to use money specifically
intended.
set aside
As
as intended, and we have come to an agreement with the sellers to
We
preserve this
Have
wonderful
not
piece of land.
overpaid.
Easy. Way easier than what Steve had to say.
That's basically all you need to say.
Yeah, facts are the facts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is there anything else that people feel they would like to speak to? Not that I'm trying to pass the buck, I'm just trying to give equal opportunity to all. 'Cause I'd be more than happy to speak to anything that comes up. No?
My suspicion is that you're going to give your presentation and people are going to feel like this is really quite comprehensive. You know, as far as questions go, I don't think there are going to be too many.
Well, you never know what article somebody's gonna, you'll hold and
Yeah.
ask some kind of question
I mean,
on.
even because we went through a lot of detail in
Yep.
our report, more so than in previous years.
Right,
I
that's
can
right.
remember when our first go-around, we had our own separate booklet one year.
Okay.
Those are the fun years. But I think because we went through such detail there, questions should be answered, I think, hopefully. If not, we'll you can go through the presentation. Everybody get copies of the slides?
Yep, yep.
I know Brian did with his LG.
I thought it was
TM?
large town meeting. And I thought, you know what, maybe it's not that.
I thought it was Let's Go Town Meeting. But I did the same thing as you, as I Googled it.
Right.
I Googled it just to see what it was. I was like, oh, okay.
So you also learned something from Brian.
Yes, yeah.
In absentia, he's our teacher.
See, I cheated because I saw your email before I looked at Brian's.
Ah.
Me too.
Said the right-
Oh, well, next
And I saw
time.
Brian's and I says, oh, I know what that means.
You were just warned.
Okay.
Okay.
So the presentation, I figured I'd start off with the bond rating for the town. We just got reaffirmed. Make that point, 10 years since we were a AA community, that's a big deal. So I'm going to make those points. The budget pressures, and at the top of the next few slides, I talked about, starting on page 4 of the booklet, read the Finance Committee report for more detail, hopefully people have. If you're watching at home, please read, starting on page 4 of your town meeting booklet, Finance Committee report, answers a lot of the questions that you may have. Talk about the budget pressures that we faced, the $3.3 million deficit, and how we solved it, or how Ryan and his team actually solved it. And then getting into what we're going to see in our before, just some of the high-level highlights that we had, 3 firefighters, 1 police officer, a school budget increase, so on, debt service pressure. Slide 5, the highlights. Just talk about those percentage increases that I have on the side. More importantly, just look at those graphs on the side, see that they do go up every year, and there's a trend of the increase. other major financial article updates, that's things that have changed from our report, basically. I still have to key in whatever CPC votes tomorrow night and how they're gonna fund the Webster land. So that's all set to go there. And then our report was written before we did the numbers for the King Street rehab. So I put that on a slide, even though it's in the article, it's in the report. I just put it out there because it's not in our report. It's $2.9 million. We have bids in hand, we're ready to go as soon as town meeting approves. And then come the fun slides, the budget pressures for the following years. I didn't know really how to start this. You know, Finance Committee in years past identified 25 and 26, actually 24, 25, and 26 as tough years. And when we were going through this process, 27 kind of popped to the top because of the sewer. But now looking at these numbers that we got out of the financial model that we use, 28 is really coming like it's the tough year. So we have 3 years of compounded increases plus debt service that's rolling in for the Indian Hill purchase, the senior center, and the sewer system. The sewer system really pops in 27 and 28 big time. And us being the only user, maybe it's lessened a little by the time we get to 28 as users come on, but I don't see
Not much.
of that.
Not until the big buildings at 550.
Exactly.
So that's,
And 550 is not going to pay a big chunk of their betterment up front. They're going to go over the 30 years and pay what they need to pay until they get to a point where they have some cash. And you may realize there's so much interest involved in paying a big chunk in. The point I wanted to make on slide 8, those revenue gains down there, is again for 550 King, that we don't know when those revenues are going to hit.
right.
We don't know how much it's going to hit, what that number is going to be. It's so far out in the future. It could take 10 years. Some of the early stuff could help 28, but it's still an unknown. He hasn't even broken ground on anything just yet. The important piece I wanted to do that was that bottom bullet, that whatever we do get in, it's not extra money for the town to spend. It has to solve those operational differences first. So it's not, hey, look at all this cash the town has. We need to put it towards our deficits, first of all. That's hardly going to cover those deficits in 28. So that's the point I'm trying to make on those slides, and I'll talk to them. It may not look pretty and stuff, but I can certainly talk to it. The next couple of slides, there's a lot of numbers on them. The most important thing is the graphs in the piece that I put in yellow, highlighted in yellow. That we have revenue forecasts that over the next 3 years increases at 1.6 million per year, or 2.4%. And our expenses of the next increase at, what's that, 2.8 million, or 4%. And that doesn't work. And you can't form a budget when two things are so divergent like that. So something has to give. Either more budget cuts or realizing some revenue increases. I know as far as FY25, if I can remember when we put together the models for 25 for new growth, it was less than last year, but it was still something, it was still to a level where Kathy was, I'm not certain, I think it was a little over 600,000 that she has in there for new growth. She thinks we can make it. She wasn't 100% comfortable with it. The numbers that we have in 26, in 27 and 28 right now are more on the lines of 300,000 to 500,000. So it's a lot less. There's really nothing else. Once this development comes online here, there's not much else, is single-family homes being built, but that doesn't really make a big impact on what's going on. And maybe once, Northern Bank starts doing their development, we'll get something else
A little
there,
bit there, yeah.
but the big thing is waiting for 550 King to come along, and we have to be, I think, we as a committee need to be prudent in how we look at spending over the next couple of years, because we simply don't know when that stuff is coming. I don't know how many times we're gonna be saying that over the next couple of years.
On slide 8, though, the last bullet point, I realized reading it that it says what you want it to say, but I think it kind of implies like whatever revenue increases we do realize aren't going to affect these budget variances where they will. It's just not going to be.
We don't know whether they will, because
Well,
we don't know when
it's
they're
gonna-
coming in.
Right, but whatever revenue increases we do realize will affect these. We
Yes.
just don't know at what, at how much, where this kind of sounds like it's not extra money to spend, like, it's almost implying like there's gonna be additional costs to offset that revenue, so it's not gonna affect these numbers, when in fact it will
Okay, so
affect them a
I
little
see what you're
bit.
saying. Okay. So it's not extra money to spend, but covering
Yeah,
the
whatever
operational
revenue
deficits
increases
that
we
we
do
have.
realize for this
Okay.
common area will, reduce these variances, but, we can't predict.
Okay,
I'm watching. I think softens it a little bit.
I'll rework that. What was it, slide 11. So we talked revenues, expenses, the third piece is capital. So this is where we make the point that, we have 10-year capital plan that we ask department heads to do. The next 3 years is $19 million. Over the 10 years, it's 29, but 19 million over the next 3 years is a big chunk. And the closer you get, the more reliance you can put into those numbers. Like 10 years out, who knows? 3 years, you could probably look at it and say, hey. So it's something that, again, we need to look at. We're starting FY '26 if everything goes through this town meeting to capital stabilization with a balance of $4.6 million to fund $19 million worth of purchases over the next 3 years.
4.6 for 19?
4.6 million starting in '26. We have $19 million in purchases over the '26, '27, and '28.
And we generally spend $1.5 million-ish on capital, unless it's something really unusual. So you have basically the 4 in the bank, and
Which in
another,
normal years would get you through it. But
Right.
those school roofs are out there,
Yeah.
and those are big ticket items.
Right. Yep.
So it's either pushing things out so we can still pay for it using our normal capital plan, or start to borrow again for this stuff, which is something I checked, and I think I mentioned, Fred and I taped a LCTV special
go?
on this. I thought it would go.
Do you guys coordinate your outfits?
no.
Were you coordinated, though? Nevertheless.
Here's Steve, I'm Fred, we're the Fincom boys.
There you go.
It's a real tearjerker, I'll tell you.
So we did that, and I mentioned on that show that I checked, the last time we borrowed for capital was FY '04.
Well, it sounds like it's time to start borrowing, right? We've done it so long, we should try it
And
again.
that's also the time where our financial policies went in place. It took us 10 years from '04 to ramp up to 14 to go from a single A rating, which is where we were, to a triple A rating in 14. So it was a long ramp-up period to change the culture, basically, and how we operated.
Does this 19 million in the capital include the high school roof?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Because I think,
All 3 schools.
okay, but I think there was some talk about, based on the timing, if they can hold it out a certain, then there's more funding available. So I guess, to me, I'm
It
not sure
takes-
why you wouldn't.
20, I've put that bug in the school department's ears 2 or 3 times already, that we need to start the process with MSBA to do the roofs through them to get reimbursement
Yeah.
on them. But it takes 20 years. Yep, the
It has to
roof
be
has
20
to be
years old.
20 years. Russell Street should be no problem, because when we did the renovation to Russell Street, we didn't touch the roofs. We didn't do it.
Well, it seems we would want to go after that money before we
So,
spent our
somebody-
own.
The school department needs to take the lead in going after these
Well,
funds.
high school must be, what, 20?
It's close.
High school is close. High school is like, I don't know,
Wasn't it built
Steve
in
is-
'01?
I thought it was
That's what
over
I was
20 because we
gonna say.
paid the debt off
I
already.
think that on the front of the building, it says 2001, like in the brick.
School department says we're still not there on the roof.
Okay, that's great. That's great news. It's
It's not because
Well, no, because it has to be
it
20
falls
to
on
get.
us.
Oh, well, that's true.
Middle school I can see. Middle school is less than 20, but put that through last unless it's really, really bad.
Get on the list anyway, yeah.
All right, get on the list. I think the process through MSBA is, for roofs, is a expedited process. I don't know for sure, but I will find out. And so, need to talk about capital. Last slide is for Shaker Lane. This to get this out there, basically, we're just starting the feasibility study right now. We just hired Studio G as the architectural firm. The OPM is in place. Town meeting has already put $1 million towards those costs. We still don't know, because we're just starting the process, whether it's a renovation, new construction, or a renovation and new construction, so like an addition or something. We just don't know. So we don't know what the costs are going to be. We've said in the past that this is going to be a debt exclusion. Are we still of that mindset, everybody? We good?
Either that or we shut down the town.
Exactly. But I think even if it's just a renovation, it's going to be millions of dollars. So it's something that, given those numbers there, something that we need to do an exclusion on. Funding, if we stay with the MSBA schedule, they're going to require us to get an appropriation in the fall of '25. So that's 18 months away. That's not very long to move this thing on.
How
And the
can,
price tag could be big.
but how can we do that without even knowing what the price is going to be? I mean, when is
Well,
that number
that's,
going to come in?
that's, we have 18 months
To figure that
to get
out.
this feasibility study, but at the end of the feasibility study, they'll have drawings,
Okay.
they'll have schematics in place, and we'll have an estimate. We won't have bids, but we'll have an estimate of what that is. The thing is, with MSBA, is once you give them a number,
That's it.
that's it. Anything else that's added on top of it, oh, we forgot this, it's our dime. So this 18 months is critical. We've already talked with the architects. There's going to be plenty of meetings with the town to get public input as far as what the town wants to see, whether they really want new construction, whether they really want just a renovation, what do they want to see in the building? Because that building is very tired. I've toured that building a couple of times now, and I haven't been in there in years. It is a tired building. It reminds me of what the old high school used to look like. It's past its time.
I thought we didn't really have a choice, though, in order to get the state funding. They're going to determine which needs to be done.
The architects put forth plans for each. The town can say, we want to see this. It goes to the
That gets submitted to them. Okay.
MSBA board, and they say, no, it's going to be
Okay.
this. So they have final say.
Okay.
Because they're putting in 48% of the money.
Yeah.
or possibly up to 52%, but right now it's at 48. And we have to go by their rules, and their rules say they're the final choice.
Okay.
But they'll listen to what the town has to say.
And the process is a little bit crazy because they require the town to authorize the entire spending. Say it's a $30 million project. They require the town to agree to pay the whole 30 million.
To authorize the entire.
Right, but then they will offset up to 48%. It was 48%, I don't know, it's still.
It depends what we do. I think the minimum is 48. If we do new construction, it could go up to
Okay,
52.
so,
So
but you still have to authorize
as
the
we
whole amount.
build it, we front the money, we get the bills, we send it to MSBA for reimbursement, and we just churn over that money over and over again. I don't know if I want to put out numbers at this point.
No.
It's a crapshoot what the numbers are.
Right.
For new construction, this definitely will be the most expensive project that the town has done. It's easy,
I think you
easily.
can remind them what the library costs, what the senior center's costing, and this,
Mhm.
you know, so.
This new construction
into-
for the school could dwarf those projects.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's a much bigger building.
It's a bigger building, plus it's,
'Cause
what's
with the
needed for
senior center-
education today is not what is needed for education 20 years ago.
Yeah, because the senior center was what, 20 million?
18.5, yeah.
Yeah, so you figure school, it's gonna be at
Yeah.
least 20 million.
Yeah. it's- Yeah,
So as a-
numbers are not a great idea.
No,
Because it's
no.
so
And
speculative.
we'll have 18
But
months.
it's huge.
Yeah.
And I
Bigger
guess-
than anything you've seen.
I guess what I will say is before we come to town meeting in the fall of '25, there'll be plenty of opportunities for finance committee to get the word out, what the impacts of the tax bills would be, what the cost is gonna be, what the borrowing is, so. It will be a big impact to people's tax bills. And you're right, that's not a good way to end. But I don't know how else to do it. I mean,
And then
that's-
a knock-knock joke.
Yeah.
Knock-knock, who's there? The tax man.
So does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
I guess we could end by saying that our tougher years are coming, where a lot of towns around us are having their tougher years already.
Mhm.
You know, I was gonna have like a slide on, you know, Westford's voting for this override,
yep.
Groton turned theirs down, and Dunstable
Townsend,
turned theirs
yeah,
down,
Pepperell
and
turned theirs
Townsend
down,
and
and-
Pepperell, and-
Acton
but I only have
has
10 minutes,
issues, yeah.
so I,
That's what I was gonna, I was gonna ask, can you get through that reasonably in 10 minutes? I mean, that's a lot.
I'm not gonna spend a lot of time
Right.
on some of these slides. I mean, I'm just gonna bring up like the point and the yellow there,
Yep.
those things.
Would it benefit the presentation to take words off of your slides?
I generally don't read slides. I mean, they're there for people
Yeah,
to see, but
yeah.
I'm just gonna talk to them.
Yeah. Will there be enough time for people to see, do you think, listen to you, hear what you're saying, which is different than, I mean, thematically the same, but different words, and be able to read? Because there are some people who, if the words are displayed, they want to be able to read them in order to feel like they're getting all the information at the meeting. Like, what if
They're
there's
so being
something?
engrossed in what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, someone is so hypnotized by what you're saying, they are distracted away from reading, but they really want to read the text on the slides. Is there time? You know what I'm saying?
On the important ones, I mean, with the bullet points, especially
Yeah.
for Shaker Lane,
Yeah.
I will go through the bullet points.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
not gonna read every word, but I will
Yeah.
say the gist of that is,
Yeah.
on Shaker Lane. And that's probably the most important thing that's out there.
Right. Right.
I think the
So
takeaway, oh, go ahead.
It's a little less than a minute a slide, that's all. I mean, that's, so it's gotta really,
It's gotta move, yeah.
yeah, that's the only thing, okay?
I was just gonna say the takeaway at the end of this is, There's a lot of information here that we know. Some of it's unknown, but we are planning ahead. So when we get to the next town meeting and the next town meeting, we're going to have more information, and we're making progress towards addressing this stuff. So I think just so the town knows is we're not just throwing this out there. Is I think there's stuff going on behind the scenes to start working on this now before it turns into a problem. It doesn't look great, some of those last slides, but we're working on it.
Mhm.
Good point.
And the school
Thank you.
started working on this, almost 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, the applications have been with MSBA for quite a while now.
Right, I mean,
We
that's
reached
a
the top
point
of the
that it's
pile.
not pie in the sky at this point.
Mhm.
You know, we're 2 years down the road
Yep.
in a very long process.
And I think that the school department may have a presentation ready for town meeting. They were working on something that talked a lot about the process with MSBA. I'm not certain they're gonna be done by town meeting.
Okay.
I think their intention is to have something being shown before the meeting up on the screen.
Okay.
Once you have the estimates back on Shaker Lane, what kind of a timetable, like, are you required to start the process? Because I'm just wondering if it's something that couldn't be, I mean, I know you said the building is in horrible shape, it needs to be done, but if it got pushed off a year or a year and a half to start, then, you know, the debt isn't gonna,
So
you
if
know,
we
so you
don't
can
make,
just-
if we don't make MSBA deadlines along the way,
okay, everything has to be
everything
lined.
just gets pushed.
Okay.
Like the entire process to pick the OPM and to pick the architects. I mean, that was months.
Okay.
You know, we put out the RFP, we got the responses back. We couldn't pick them. We couldn't talk to them. We had to go to the MSBA, have a meeting with them. They select who they are. We recommend they actually do the selection.
Okay.
Um,
So everything is really on their timetable?
Everything's on with them, and when their board meets once a month, basically.
Mhm.
If you don't want them to pay for half of the school,
Yeah,
do what
Do
you
what
want.
you want, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
exactly.
If you want them to pay for
And-
half of
and-
your school,
Yep. You wait.
you do what they
You
want.
do what they want, and
And that's really
you
the
say
hope
thank you.
they have.
Thank
Right,
you.
that's
Yes.
right.
Yeah, I mean, we went through this way back, we did the high school
Yeah.
and, you know, the middle school, and it's just, it's a torture.
It's worse now.
Is it now?
It's a lot worse now, 'cause, I mean, going back into those 3 projects that I was involved with, we at least could choose and had a say in a lot of things. No, we don't even have a say in it now.
Wow.
Everything's on to them.
Okay. All right, so will you touch base with the schools and see what they're gonna be presenting? So whatever you're presenting is, and then, I
Well,
mean, I
we'll
don't see where that
know.
would be in conflict, but
So
it's just,
Friday morning is the moderators
okay,
meeting. We'll talk to them then.
okay, good. Good,
Okay,
nothing to it,
great.
it's only money.
We
have a public.
Yay, we have the public. Hello, public.
Yeah, sometimes I've been referred to as the public audience. So I'm glad to hear you've solved all the financial problems. So I see what meetings are coming up, and, you know, if there were a select board meeting, I'd be there. So I was just curious about the Gog Hill Orchard
Yep.
warrant article, and I realize things have been done sort of last minute. And I was sort of surprised hearing about the meeting where it got approved by the Gog Hill Orchard group, because it hadn't been on the agenda that there's gonna be a vote. No one had seen any printed copy of the vote. I think even verbally at the meeting, it wasn't even mentioned what was approved. So, yeah, it doesn't really look like the poster child for an open meeting. So, yeah, I realize people are doing things last minute, and I realize there was interest to get it before you and the selectmen the next business day and get approved and get on the warrant article. So, you know, I could have filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office, but I don't think that would really help anyone. My main concern is making sure the public has some say in things. So, yeah, I assume the warrant article came from the town council and was provided upstream. But my concern is there's no provision for the public on the final disposition of the conclusions of doing an RFP and the disposition of the public lands funded by state grants. Certainly it starts off the part where, it doesn't meet open meeting law and public really didn't get a chance to see what's there. And then at the tail end, the public isn't involved at all. So, this sounds very much like the Cooper Farm situation, which I don't think many people would like to relive. There's financial assets involved,
So, John, the Finance Committee did not vote this article.
Right.
It's from the Nagog Orchard Group and the Select Board. It's really there. We haven't really been involved in any of
Sure.
that conversation ourselves.
But you just happen to have a meeting, so, and there are financial implications, of disposing of public lands and public funding. So I'm here mostly just to share some thoughts, because someone may ask you at town meeting what your thoughts are about that. And, my take is when bad things happen or things don't get done well, it's costly. I can suggest example of the septic system at the high school. I was in the Board of Health there, and that got pushed through, and boy, was that costly. So, bad government has costly mistakes. So, it isn't against the town saying they can't manage the land, but the public should have some final say about what the results are. And, essentially buying a pig in a poke bag and not knowing what's there, because the public gets all thrown aside. They may have a chance to say stuff, sort of window dressing as they go through, but the public never gets to have a final say on what the results are. Like if the town wants to do it, it'd be nice if they would come up with the results and everyone knows the terms, they know what they're getting into, and they say yes or no. So that's my take. And I wasn't sure where you were on, voicing an opinion on article, but I was there when we, as a community, voted to acquire the land. And I've worked with like a dozen lands acquiring a line of corridor. Just sort of surprises me the public has no say about how it gets disposed. And even the 30B and stuff, there are all sorts of provisions that don't seem to be there. So it's mostly sharing those thoughts, because you are an influential group and the financial implications.
I know that the working group has had a number of meetings. And I think they actually, did they meet with the select board the last meeting or at
No,
least-
I was at that. And that was a very constructive meeting. And they actually put together a process, which sort of a rational process for doing source selection in an RFP. But that was very constructive. So I've gone to most of these meetings. And, my heart goes out to them. He earns, stars in heaven or whatever. A lot of work is going into it, but it does need to be a public process.
No, that's why it's a town meeting warrant. That's what
Right,
town
I'm
meetings are
just-
for, so.
Just trying to make things more simple before we hit town meeting.
Yeah.
I've heard people suggesting doing an MOU or putting a provision in the warrant article. And if we're shared ahead of time, maybe that could have been done. But trying to find a constructive, collaborative approach, which is why I didn't go to the agent's office to complain about violation of the open meeting. But nonetheless, public does need to be involved. So anyway, that's my story.
Okay.
But it's nice to see you work. I haven't been to many of the meetings that you've had, so. And you
As you can
have a
see,
good
we
time.
We usually have a sold out
Packed it in.
room, packed room.
Maybe it's the cover charge that we have.
But it'll be interesting how this goes down at town meeting. I know that,
I don't know whether they're revising the motion that's presented or not, I really have no idea, Don.
Yeah, but you just happened to have the meeting, so that was nice.
Glad we could oblige.
All right.
Anything else?
I don't have
No.
anything. No.
So we'll meet, I think our next meeting would be, town meetings at 7. I think we'll be posted for 6, somewhere in the building. I don't know where they're talking about it. It's probably still the library. I don't know.
That's- Well, they usually do it, I don't know what they'll do this year, yeah. But for us, it's probably pretty much the 2 articles.
Mhm.
and
Yeah, I think the select board has to vote on those same 2. so.
And maybe 3 if the other one has to change.
Oh, it's,
Oh,
yes.
if
They
the
got
CPC has to.
8:10.
Right.
And maybe NAGOG is gonna be on one of those pink sheets. I don't know.
We'll see.
I don't know.
All right.
All right, anything else, anybody?
But at this point,
I'm sorry.
there's no money involved from our standpoint with the NAGOG article as we understand it.
That's right.
No,
No.
there's no money anywhere.
Nothing's happening
Or
right now.
nothing's happening.
Yeah.
The article
So if
is,
they need money, you know, if they.
the article is for the,
Permission, it's just,
Authorization
yeah, letting
to-
the select boards.
letting the select board choose, basically, like Don was saying, the select board is choosing who to sell it to,
Right.
for giving them that authority.
Yeah, okay, that's what
Whether
I
that's the
thought.
right way to do it, I don't know, town meeting will.
Well, then,
It was interesting, it's a complete flip from what everyone had talked about beforehand. Before the late Friday afternoon meeting, you know, when the town office was closed, and it's like, where'd this come from? In fact, even the chair was surprised it wasn't gonna be a 2-step process. So someone knew, but, you know.
okay.
Not us.
All righty.
Right.
Right?
Time for my favorite motion. Motion
Absolutely.
to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
Well, second and all in favor? See you all Tuesday, May 7th.